Ryan had always been the curious type. As a young explorer from Earth, he found himself on countless planets, discovering strange creatures and untold mysteries. But none of his previous adventures had prepared him for what he encountered on. This alien world, the planet, was a strange one, full of thick forests, glowing plants, and mountains that reached higher than any earthbound mountain Ryan had seen. It was a beautiful place, but also dangerous. Ryan's team had been sent to explore, study, and gather information. The weather had been unpredictable, and the wildlife even more so. But it wasn't the planet's strange atmosphere that worried him. It was the feeling that something was watching him. That night, Reen sat alone outside his small tent, the stars above him shining brightly. The fire crackled softly, and the wind moved through the trees, creating a soft whispering sound. It was peaceful, too peaceful, almost. Suddenly, there was a rustling in the bushes nearby. Ryan stiffened, his hand instinctively reaching for the blaster holstered at his side. He had heard strange noises before, alien creatures, wild and untamed. But this sounded different. The rustling grew louder, closer. Ryan stood up, drawing his blaster and aiming it toward the noise. His heart raced as he squinted into the darkness. Out of the shadows, something emerged. It was large, at least twice as tall as Ryan, with glowing eyes that seemed to pierce the night. The creature was covered in thick fur, a mix of dark brown and light gray. Sharp claws glinted in the low light, and Ryan's breath caught in his throat. For a moment he thought it was going to attack, but it didn't. Instead, the creature moved closer to his tent, its movements cautious but determined. Ryan's grip on his blaster tightened, ready for anything. But then, without warning, the creature stopped right in front of his tent, staring at him. It wasn't just a creature, it was a woman, an alien woman. She was not like any human, but there was something undeniably human about her eyes, her face, her posture. She was tall, muscular, and covered in fur from head to toe. But her face, although alien, had a softness to it. There was a sadness in her eyes. Ryan didn't know what to do. He kept his blaster aimed at her, but he didn't fire. Instead, he spoke, his voice steady but filled with confusion. "Who are you?" he asked. The creature didn't answer. Instead, she lowered her head, reaching into a pouch on her side and pulling out a thick chain. With surprising speed, she uncoiled it and, without warning, wrapped one end around her arm and the other around a nearby tree. She chained herself to his tent. Ryan stared at her, shocked and unsure of what was happening. The chain was strong, and she made sure it was fastened tightly. "I can't live without you," she said, her voice low but firm. Ryan's eyes widened. Her words didn't make sense. Was she threatening him? Or was this some kind of strange ritual? He didn't know. "What are you doing?" he asked, lowering his blaster slightly, but keeping it ready in case of danger. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she seemed to look around as if making sure she was truly bound to him. Then she spoke again, her voice softer this time. You are the one," she said, her words filled with a strange sense of urgency. "The prophecy says you will save us. You will save me." Ryan was even more confused now. Prophecy? What are you talking about? He took a step forward, lowering his weapon fully, unsure of how to respond to this strange woman. The alien woman took a deep breath, her glowing eyes softening slightly. "I'm Kara," she said, her voice steady but still tinged with fear. "I'm from a tribe that has been destroyed by my enemies. I was told that a human would come. A human who would help us." Ryan shook his head. "I'm just an explorer. I'm not here to save anyone. My team is studying this planet, and that's all." Kara shook her head, her face full of determination. "No, you are the one. The prophecy doesn't lie. You are my only hope." Ryan tried to process her words. Was she crazy, or was there something more to this? He didn't know, but he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of responsibility toward her. She was strong, and yet she seemed vulnerable. She was chained to his tent, but not as an enemy. There was a quiet desperation in her eyes. "I can't help you," Ryan said, his voice gentle but firm. I don't even know what this prophecy is or who your enemies are. Kara's gaze never wavered from his. You don't have to understand it all right now, but you will, she said. You will. I just need you to take me with you. We have to go. My people need me and you. You are the key. Ryan stood there, unsure of what to do. His mind was racing. This was nothing like anything he had expected. But there was something about Kara, something that made him want to help her. She wasn't just some alien chained to his tent out of some bizarre ritual. She was in pain, in fear, and he could see that. Reluctantly, Ryan nodded. All right, he said, his voice quiet but firm. We'll figure this out. But I don't know how I'm supposed to help you? We'll start by talking. We need to understand this prophecy. Kara's face softened, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. She nodded. Double quotes. Thank you, she whispered. Her voice filled with a strange mix of gratitude and hope. Ryan didn't know what he had gotten himself into, but he knew one thing for sure. His life and the fate of this alien woman would never be the same again. Ryan sat across from Kara, the strange alien woman who had chained herself to his tent, still unsure of what to make of it all. The fire crackled between them, casting long shadows on the ground as they sat in silence. The night air was cool, and Ryan found himself drawn to the way the glow of the fire reflected off Kara's fur-covered body. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her eyes, those glowing orbs, were still filled with worry. She had said she couldn't live without him, and though Ryan didn't understand it, he could feel the urgency in her words. This wasn't a typical encounter. It was more to her than the wild strength she showed earlier. Beneath her tough exterior, there was a deep sadness. A loneliness that Ryan could sense but didn't fully understand. So, you're telling me that you believe I'm here to save you? Ryan asked, still trying to make sense of what had happened. Kara nodded slowly, her expression serious. Yes, I believe you are the one. I don't know why or how, but the prophecy says that a human will save us. Save me. She shifted uncomfortably. In her seat, the chain still wrapped around her arm and tied to the nearby tree. I've been alone for so long, my tribe, ... They're gone. My people were scattered, hunted, destroyed by the ones who came after us. Ryan listened carefully, his mind racing as he thought about what she had just said. A prophecy? Human being the one to save her people? This sounded like something out of a story, not the reality of an explorer on an unknown planet. But the more he looked at Kara, the more he realized that she was desperate, not crazy. She wasn't asking for a miracle. She was asking for help. Why me? Ryan asked. I'm just here to study. I'm not a hero. Not even sure how I can help. Kara's glowing eyes met his, filled with a quiet determination. I don't know. No. But when I saw you, I knew. I saw the way you fight, the way you think. I saw hope in you. I don't have many options left. The ones who destroyed my people, they won't stop until I'm gone too. You are my last chance. Ryan was silent for a long moment, trying to process everything she had said. A part of him wanted to just walk away. This was too strange too. Far from anything he had ever experienced. But another part of him, something deeper inside, knew that leaving Kara here, stranded and alone, wasn't an option. So, what happened to your people? Ryan finally asked, his voice softer now. Why were they attacked? Kara's shoulders slumped, and her eyes looked down at the ground. We were once a proud tribe, living on a distant planet. We had no enemies, no reason to fear anything. But then, one day, a new species came. They were, like us, but not. They were ruthless, violent. They came to take our land, our resources. They didn't care about the lives they destroyed. They killed, burned, and took everything from us. Ryan felt a knot tighten in his stomach as Kara spoke. He could see how much pain she carried in her words. She had witnessed the destruction of her entire way of life, the loss of everyone. She had known their leader. He's the one who started it all, Kara continued, her voice shaking with anger. He's the one who hunted us down one by one. Thought I was dead, but I survived. I ran, hiding from them, hoping to find a way to fight back. I came here because I thought I could start over, but now I'm not sure what to do. Ryan's heart went out to her. She wasn't just some alien warrior. was a survivor. She had fought for her life and lost everything. Now she was asking for his help, even though she didn't know how he could give it. "So you think I can help you fight this leader? The one who destroyed your people?" Ryan asked, his voice still skeptical but more understanding now. Kara nodded, though there was a sadness in her eyes. "Yes, the prophecy says that a human will lead us. It doesn't say how or why, but it's clear. I've heard the stories from my elders. They were clear about the human's role. We need your strength, your mind. The leader who destroyed us, he's strong, but so are you. Together, we can defeat him. Together, we can take back what was ours." Ryan rubbed his face, trying to process everything she had just said. It sounded impossible. He was just one person, and he wasn't a warrior. He was an explorer, a scientist. What could he do against a powerful alien enemy? But there was something in Kara's voice, something in the way she looked at him. It wasn't just hope, it was trust. She was trusting him, a complete stranger, to help her. She was trusting him to save her people, and that wasn't something he could take lightly. "What's the plan?" Ryan asked, his voice quiet but determined. Kara's eyes brightened slightly. "I need to find the last of my people, the survivors. They're scattered, hiding in the wilderness. They've been waiting for someone to lead them. If we can unite them, we can build a new army and take back our land. We can fight the leader and his army. Oh, we need to be careful. They are hunting me. I know they'll stop at nothing to finish what they started." Ryan felt a sense of responsibility wash over him. He wasn't sure if he was ready for this, but he knew he couldn't turn his back on her. She had come to him for help, and she believed in him. "We'll find them," Ryan said, his voice firm. "We'll do it together." Kara smiled, a small but grateful smile. "Thank you," she whispered. "You have no idea what this means to me." Ryan nodded, feeling a sense of weight settle on his shoulders. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was a fight for survival, a fight for a people who had been lost to war and destruction. And he was going to help them. As the fire crackled and the night grew colder, Ryan and Kara began to make their plans. They would travel into the wilderness, find the last survivors of her tribe, and prepare to face the leader who had destroyed her world. Ryan didn't know what the future held. But he knew one thing. It was time to fight. The journey into the wilderness was harder than Ryan had imagined. He had expected the planet's alien beauty to make it feel like a grand adventure, but the reality was much more dangerous. The landscape was wild, untamed. Thick forests with towering trees surrounded them, casting long shadows. The air was heavy with moisture, and the sounds of strange creatures echoed in the distance. Every step they took, Ryan felt more and more like an outsider on this world. Kara led the way, her movements fluid and confident. She was used to this kind of environment. Her instincts were sharp, and her senses seemed to always be alert. Ryan, on the other hand, struggled to keep up. He wasn't used to such an alien world, where every rustle of leaves or distant growl could be a threat. Despite the difficulty of the journey, there was something about Kara that kept him moving forward. Her strength, her determination, it was contagious. She had been through so much, yet she carried herself with a kind of quiet grace. Every now and then, she would glance back at him, checking that he was still following. When she saw him struggling, she would slow down, making sure he was okay. It was clear that she didn't want him to get hurt. Ryan, for his part, had to admit that he was starting to feel a strange connection to her. It wasn't just because of the prophecy or the danger they were in. There was something about her, something real and raw, that made him want to protect her. He wasn't sure if it was the situation they were in or something deeper, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were in this together. They had been traveling for hours when the first real test of their journey came. As they crossed a narrow stream, a loud noise interrupted the peaceful atmosphere. Ryan's heart raced, and he instinctively reached for his blaster. Kara stopped him with a hand. "Stay quiet," she whispered, her voice tense. "Something is nearby." Ryan froze, his eyes scanning the trees around them. The noise had come from the dense underbrush, and it was getting louder. He couldn't see anything, but he could feel the tension building. Suddenly, a massive shape emerged from the shadows, a creature the size of a small house, its body covered in thick, spiked armor. Its eyes glowed like fiery embers, and its mouth was filled with sharp, jagged teeth. It snarled as it stepped forward, its heavy steps shaking the ground beneath them. Ryan's stomach tightened. He had never seen anything like this. The creature's sheer size and power were enough to intimidate anyone. He glanced at Kara, who had already shifted into a defensive stance. Her expression was fierce, and she seemed ready to face whatever this creature was. "It's a Raxer," Kara muttered, her voice low. "A predator. We need to get past it without making it angry." Ryan didn't know if there was any way to get past it without a fight. The Raxer's growls were deafening, and it was glaring at them with a hunger in its eyes. Ryan could feel the creature's hostility in the air. It wasn't just looking for food. It was looking for a fight. Kara slowly moved in front of Ryan, her posture strong and steady. "Stay behind me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Do not move unless I tell you to." Ryan nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure how they were going to survive this, but he trusted Kara. She had already shown him what she was capable of. Now, it was her turn to show him how to survive in this alien world. The Raxer took another step forward, its eyes narrowing as it sized them up. Kara crouched down slightly, preparing for the worst. Ryan kept his hand on his blaster, but he knew that if things went south, it wouldn't be enough. This creature was far too dangerous. For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. The only sound was the growling of the Raxer and the rustling of the trees. Then Kara made her move. In a flash, she lunged forward, charging at the Raxer with the speed and agility of a predator. Ryan barely had time to react before she was already clashing with the creature. Kara's movements were precise, aimed at distracting the Raxer long enough for them to escape. Ryan's heart raced as he watched the two combatants struggle. Kara's strength and speed were incredible, but the Raxer wasn't going down without a fight. It swiped at her with its massive claws, narrowly missing her by inches. Kara ducked and weaved, using her agility to stay one step ahead. Ryan couldn't just stand there and do nothing. He saw an opportunity while the Raxer was distracted by Kara. It had left itself open. Without thinking, he rushed forward, drawing his blaster. "Kara, get out of the way," shouted. Kara glanced over at him just in time to see him take aim at the creature. She rolled to the side and Ryan fired, hitting the Raxer in its side. The creature roared in pain, its eyes widening with anger. It turned on him, its massive body lunging in his direction. Ryan barely had time to react before the Raxer was upon him, its sharp claws swiping through the air. He ducked, narrowly avoiding the blow, and scrambled backward, his heart pounding in his chest. But Kara wasn't done yet. She moved swiftly, attacking the Raxer's weak points with expert precision. With one final blow, she struck at the creature's underbelly, sending it crashing to the ground with a deafening roar. Ryan stood frozen for a moment, trying to catch his breath. The Raxer lay motionless, its massive body sprawled out across the forest floor. Looked at Kara, who was breathing heavily, but standing tall. No? Her eyes never leaving the fallen creature. "That was close," Ryan said, still in shock. "I didn't know you could do that." Kara wiped the sweat from her forehead, her expression serious, but not without a hint of pride. "I've had to learn how to survive," she said quietly. "On this planet, only the strong survive." Ryan looked at her, realizing just how much she had been through. This wasn't just about fighting, it was about survival. And Kara had been fighting for her life long before he had arrived. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, his voice softer now. Kara nodded, though there was still a tension in her shoulders. "I'm fine, but this is just the beginning. The planet is full of dangers, and the Raxer was only one of many." Ryan's eyes widened. If they were going to survive this journey, they would have to be prepared for more challenges like this one. But for now, they had made it through the first one. Together, the days passed quickly as Ryan and Kara continued their journey through the alien wilderness. The forest seemed endless, with towering trees that stretched toward the sky, their roots tangled in a thick carpet of moss. The air was thick with humidity, and the constant sound of strange creatures in the distance kept Ryan on edge. But with Kara by his side, he felt safer. Even in the midst of the unknown, as they traveled deeper into the wilderness, Ryan learned more about Kara and her people. She had been part of a tribe that lived on a distant planet, far from this one. Her people had been peaceful, living in harmony with nature, until the enemy species had come. They were ruthless, taking what they wanted and destroying everything. In their path, Kara's tribe had tried to fight back, but they were outmatched. She had lost everything: her family, her friends, her home. Now, she was all that was left of her people. Her only goal was to survive and rebuild. Ryan listened to her stories, feeling the weight of her loss. He had never experienced anything like this. Earth had its own share of problems, but nothing that compared to the kind of war Kara had endured. Despite the pain in her past, Kara never spoke of revenge. She only wanted to rebuild her people, to find the survivors and unite them. It was a mission that had become her life's purpose. But the more Ryan learned, the more he realized how much danger they were in. Kara had said that her people were scattered, hiding in the wilderness, waiting for someone to lead them. But there was no time to waste. The enemy was still hunting her, and the longer they stayed in one place, the more likely they were to be found. "We need to hurry," Kara said one evening as they made camp. "We can't stay here too long. The enemy will be looking for us." Ryan nodded, setting up his gear and checking their surroundings. "How much further to the survivors?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "We're close," Kara replied. "But the further we go, the more dangerous it gets. There are creatures out here that aren't friendly, and we can't afford to let our guard down." Ryan knew that Kara was right. They had already faced one life-threatening encounter with the Raxer. They hadn't even reached their destination yet, but he wasn't going to back down. He'd made a promise to help her, and he wasn't going to let her down. As night fell, they sat around the campfire, eating a small meal of dried food that they had brought with them. The fire flickered and crackled, casting long shadows in the darkness. Kara seemed lost in thought, her eyes distant as she stared into the flames. Ryan didn't want to disturb her, but he couldn't help but feel the weight of their situation. They were on a planet full of dangers, with no guarantee of safety. But there was something about Kara that made him believe they could make it through. She had an inner strength that was hard to ignore, and he found himself drawn to it. "What do you think it will be like?" Ryan asked, breaking the silence. "When we find the others? When we unite your people?" Kara glanced at him, her expression softening. "I don't know," she said quietly. "I hope it's not too late. I hope they'll still be willing to fight for what we lost, but ... I can't be sure. Many of them have been hiding for so long, afraid of the enemy. They may have given up." Ryan thought about her words, his heart heavy. He had no idea what it was like to lose everything, to have your people scattered and hunted. But he understood loss, understood what it felt like to lose something precious. And he knew that if there was any chance of saving her people, they had to act quickly. "We'll find them," Ryan said, his voice filled with determination. "We won't give up. I'll help you gather them, Kara. We'll make sure they have a chance to fight back." Kara smiled faintly, the first smile he had seen from her in days. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know how much that means to me." The next morning, they continued their journey, moving faster now, knowing that the enemy could be closer than ever. The landscape began to change as they moved further into the heart of the wilderness. The trees grew taller and thicker, their branches blocking out the sun. The air was cooler here, but the silence was unsettling. There were no sounds of creatures, no rustling leaves. It was as if the whole world had gone still. Kara's senses were on high alert. She moved silently through the forest, her eyes scanning every shadow, every rustle in the trees. Ryan tried to keep up, but he could feel the tension building. Something was wrong. Without warning, Kara stopped, her body rigid. Ryan instinctively froze beside her, his hand resting on his blaster. He had learned to trust her instincts, and when she was this alert, he knew they were in danger. "They're here," Kara whispered. "The enemy is close. We have to move. Fast." Ryan's heart raced. "Where are they? How many?" Kara shook her head. "I don't know. But we can't risk being spotted. We'll have to hide." They quickly ducked behind a large rock, crouching low to the ground. Ryan's eyes darted around, looking for any sign of movement. The forest was eerily quiet now, as if the creatures had disappeared altogether. Kara's breathing was steady, but Ryan could see the tension in her posture. She was ready for anything, but even she couldn't predict what was coming. After what felt like an eternity, they heard a soft rustling sound in the distance. It grew louder, closer. Ryan's grip tightened on his blaster as the enemy appeared. They were humanoid like Kara, but their skin was pale, almost translucent. Their eyes were dark, devoid of emotion, and their movements were smooth, like predators, stalking their prey. Kara's eyes narrowed as she watched them. "They're hunters," she said softly. "They won't stop until they find me." Ryan felt his breath catch in his throat. They were surrounded, and the enemy was closing in. But there was no turning back now. He had to trust Kara, and they had to survive this together. The tension in the air was thick as Ryan and Kara crouched behind the large rock, watching the enemy hunters move closer. The sound of their footsteps was faint but steady, like the ticking of a clock, each second passing with more danger. Kara's eyes were narrowed, her posture tense, every muscle in her body coiled. Ready to act, Ryan, heart pounding, kept his hand on his blaster but didn't draw it. He trusted Kara, and he knew that if things went wrong, she would handle it. The enemy was too close, and there was nowhere to run. All they could do was wait. "They're not stopping," Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible. "What do we do now?" Kara's gaze never left the enemy. "We wait. We have to stay." Out of sight. Ryan nodded, but his mind raced. How had the hunters found them so quickly? Had they been tracking Kara this whole time? It seemed impossible, yet here they were in the heart of the wilderness, surrounded by enemies that seemed to appear out of nowhere. The enemy group moved past them, their eyes scanning the area, but they didn't seem to notice the hiding pair. Ryan held his breath, not daring to make a sound. He could feel his heart thumping in his chest, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Once the hunters were out of sight, Kara finally let out a breath, her shoulders relaxing just slightly. She turned to Ryan, her expression serious but determined. "There. Close," she said. "We need to move now, while we still have a chance." Ryan didn't need to be told twice. He followed Kara as she moved through the forest with ease, her steps swift and silent. They kept to the shadows, staying low to the ground and moving quickly. Ryan did his best to keep up, but he couldn't help but feel a little out of place. He had never experienced anything like this, but Kara seemed at home in the wilderness, like she had always lived in it, after what felt like hours of carefully navigating the thick forest. They finally came to a small clearing. It wasn't much a patch of grass surrounded by trees, but it was quiet, and Ryan felt a small sense of relief. Kara stopped and turned to him. "We're almost there," she said, her voice soft but filled with determination. "It's survivors. They're just beyond this ridge." Ryan nodded, his muscles sore from the constant movement. "How many are there?" Kara's eyes softened as she thought. A handful, not many left. "They've been hiding for a long time, but they're strong, and they'll listen." Ryan could see the hope in her eyes, the flicker of belief that this would be the turning point. The thought of bringing her people together, of uniting them for the first time in what felt like forever, seemed impossible. But Ryan was beginning to understand just how much this meant to her. She had lost everything, and now she was all that remained of her tribe. This was her chance to rebuild, to start again. They moved cautiously up the ridge, every step careful as they approached. The area where the survivors were hiding, the trees parted slightly, and Ryan caught his first glimpse of the small camp in the distance. It was nothing grand, just a few tents and makeshift shelters scattered around, hidden among the trees. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Kara's pace quickened as she saw the camp. "They're here," she said, her voice filled with relief. "They're waiting for me." As they approached, a figure stepped out from behind one of the tents. It was a tall, muscular man, his features sharp and hard, with eyes that seemed to size them both up in an instant. He had a weapon in hand, and Ryan instinctively placed his hand on his own blaster. Kara stepped forward, raising a hand in a peaceful gesture. "It's me," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "It's Kara." The man didn't move for a moment, his eyes still wary. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Kara," he asked, his voice rough from years of hiding and surviving. "Survived?" Kara nodded. "I survived. And I've brought someone who can help us. This is Ryan from Earth. He's the one who will lead us." Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected to be introduced this way, but it seemed that Kara believed in him, and that was enough for now. The man looked Ryan over, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he turned and called to the others in the camp. "She's back. Kara's back." Within moments, the survivors began to emerge from their shelters. A few at first, then more, until there were a dozen or more faces, all looking at Kara with a mix of disbelief and hope. These were the last of her people, the ones who had managed to survive the enemy's attacks, who had hidden in the wilderness for years. Waiting for a sign, Ryan watched as Kara approached them, her posture strong, her eyes filled with determination. "I've found a way to fight back," she said, her voice ringing out in the clearing. "We will rebuild together." The group murmured among themselves, some unsure, others skeptical, but Ryan could see the glimmer of hope in their eyes. They were tired, beaten down by years of hiding and running. But Kara's return, her promise of unity, gave them something they hadn't had in a long time: hope. Ryan stayed in the background, watching as Kara spoke with her people, explaining what had happened, how they had come to this point. He could see the respect they had for her, the way they listened intently, hanging on her every word. She was their leader, and they knew it. One of the women stepped forward, her eyes studying Ryan. "And what of him?" she asked. "Why should we trust a human?" Kara turned to face Ryan, her gaze steady. "Because he's the one we've been waiting for. The prophecy spoke of a human who would help us, and Ryan is that human. He will lead us, and together we will fight back." Ryan stepped forward then, feeling the weight of their gazes on him. "I may not be from here, but I'll fight with you," he said, his voice steady and confident. "I'll help you rebuild. I'll help you take back your land." The survivors exchanged looks, some still unsure, but many nodding, their faces softening. They had nothing left to lose. But with Kara's return and Ryan's promise, they could finally see a future. "We will fight," Kara said, her voice strong. "We will not run any longer. The enemy will not take our home." The tribe's response was slow at first, but it grew louder, a chorus of agreement, of hope, and of unity. Kara had brought them back together, and with Ryan's help, they would face whatever came next. Ryan looked at Kara, seeing the determination in her eyes. They had just begun. For the first time in a long while, Ryan believed they had a real chance. The days following their reunion with the survivors were filled with preparation. Kara, now surrounded by those who had once shared her life, found herself filled with both relief and a sense of responsibility. Her tribe had been broken, scattered, and hidden for so long, but now, under the quiet strength of their leader, they were coming together. The hope that had been missing for so long began to grow once more. Ryan watched as Kara worked tirelessly, organizing the survivors and preparing them for what was to come. The enemy, though still far away, was never out of their minds. They knew the danger was real, and it was only a matter of time before the enemy would try to find them. But Ryan felt something inside him, something that told him this wasn't just about survival. It was about reclaiming what had been taken from Kara's people. Kara had told him that she had been the leader of her tribe before it was destroyed. But now, she was a different kind of leader. She no longer just led by strength. She led with the will to rebuild and restore what was lost. Ryan could see that the survivors respected her, but they also needed more than just a leader. They needed a plan. In the days that followed, they worked together to come up with a strategy. Kara's knowledge of the enemy's tactics was invaluable, but it was Ryan's practical thinking that helped shape their approach. He had never been in a battle like this, but he had spent enough time in the wilderness to know that surviving wasn't just about brute strength. It was about being smart, using the land, and knowing when to fight and when to hide. On the day they decided to make their move, the air was thick with tension. The tribe had gathered in a clearing, their faces filled with uncertainty, but also with resolve. Kara stood before them, her back straight, her eyes scanning the crowd. She had come a long way since the first time Ryan had met her, and now she looked every bit the leader she was born to be. "We've been hiding long enough," Kara said, her voice carrying through the group. "The enemy will come for us, but we will not hide. We will stand and fight together." Ryan stood at her side, watching the faces of the survivors. They were ready. They had seen what Kara could do, and they had heard what Ryan had promised. Now it was time to make good on that promise. "We've trained," Ryan added, stepping forward. "We've prepared. Now we need to take the fight to them." A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Ryan could see the fire in their eyes, the same fire that had once burned in Kara. They were ready to reclaim their home, to fight for their future. Kara nodded and stepped back. "Ryan will lead us. He's the one who brought us together. He's the one who will show us the way." Ryan wasn't sure what to expect when he stepped into this role, but as the tribe looked to him, he realized that this wasn't just about leadership. It was about trust. Kara had trusted him, and now it was his turn to prove that trust was well placed. They set out at dawn, moving quietly through the forest, keeping to the shadows. The path ahead was dangerous, but they were determined. The enemy had always hunted them in the dark, using the shadows to their advantage. Now, they would turn that advantage against them. As they neared the enemy's stronghold, Kara motioned for them to stop. She had led them through the forest many times, but this time it was different. This time, they were not running. This time, they were fighting back. "This is it," Kara whispered, her voice barely audible. "Hey, we need to get inside and take them by surprise." Ryan nodded. The stronghold ahead was a massive structure, built into the side of a mountain. It was heavily guarded, but Kara knew the layout. She had been here before, and she knew where the weak points were. The group split up, moving through the trees and into position. Ryan's heart raced as he followed Kara, his mind focused on the task at hand. They had trained for this, but now that the moment was here, he felt the weight of their mission. Kara led the charge, moving swiftly and silently, her footsteps barely making a sound. Ryan stayed close behind, keeping watch as they moved toward the enemy's entrance. The others followed, ready for whatever came next. When they reached the entrance, Kara turned to Ryan, her eyes filled with determination. "This is our chance. Once we're in, there's no turning back." Ryan nodded, his grip tight on his blaster. "We can do this," he said, his voice steady. "We'll take back what's ours." With that, Kara pushed open the door, and they entered the stronghold. Inside, the air was heavy, filled with the sounds of distant machinery and the low murmur of voices. The enemy had no idea they were there. It was time to strike. Kara and Ryan moved quickly, taking out guards as they went. The survivors, who had trained under Kara's guidance, were just as skilled, taking down enemies with precision and speed. Ryan was amazed at how well they worked together, their movements coordinated and fluid. It was like they had been doing this for years, but the deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. The enemy was strong, but so were they. Ryan could feel the tension in the air as they approached the central command room. The final battle was ahead. When they reached the command room, they found the enemy leader waiting. He was tall, with pale skin and cold eyes. He stood by a console, watching them as they entered. "So, you've come to die?" the leader said, his voice low and menacing. Kara stepped forward, her eyes locked on his. "No, we've come to take back what's ours." The leader laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're a fool," he said. "You think you can defeat me? You think you can defeat us?" Kara's eyes blazed with fury. "We've already defeated you," she said, her voice cold and certain. "You just don't know it yet." With that, the final battle began. Ryan and the survivors fought with everything they had. The leader was powerful, but so were they. The fight was brutal. But Kara's leadership and Ryan's guidance helped them hold their ground. In the end, it was Kara who struck the final blow. With a swift movement, she took down the leader, her blade sinking into his chest. The enemy's stronghold fell silent, and for the first time in years, Kara's people were free. As the last of the enemy forces retreated, Kara stood tall, her eyes filled with a mix of relief and triumph. They had done it. They had won. Ryan stood beside her, his heart still racing from the battle. He had never imagined being part of something like this, but now, standing beside Kara and her people, he knew that they had accomplished something incredible. "We did it," Kara said, her voice filled with pride. "We're free." Ryan nodded, a smile breaking across his face. "Yes, we are."